The Tibetan Book of the Dead, Chapter 11, Part 1 continued. First, a sheet of radiant white light rays, bright and awesome, indicative of the pristine cognition of reality's expanse, will emanate from the heart of Vajrayana and touch your heart. Above this sheet of light, a white seminal point resembling a mirror facing downwards will arise, emanating light rays extremely radiant, bright and dazzling, adorned with 5 distinct seminal points of like nature, each of which in turn will be adorned by greater and lesser seminal points, forming an array with no center or horizon. Second, a sheet of radiant blue light, indicative of the mirror-like pristine cognition, will emanate from the heart of Vajrasattva. Above this, like a turquoise bowl facing downwards, a radiant blue seminal point will arise, also adorned by an array of greater and lesser seminal points. Third, a sheet of radiant yellow light, indicative of the pristine cognition of sameness, will emanate from the heart of Ratnasambhava. Above this, like a gold cup facing downwards, a radiant yellow seminal point will arise, also adorned by an array of greater and lesser seminal points. Fourth, a sheet of radiant red light, indicative of the pristine cognition of discernment, will emanate from the heart of Amitabha. Above this, like a coral bowl facing downwards, a radiant red seminal point will arise, extremely luminous and dazzling, resplendent with the luminosity of pristine cognition. It too will be adorned with 5 distinct seminal points of like nature, each of which in turn will also be adorned by greater and lesser seminal points, forming an array with no center or horizon. All of these lights and seminal points will indeed arise and touch your heart. O child of Buddha nature, these radiances are arising out of the natural expressive power of your own awareness. They have not come from anywhere else. Therefore, do not be attached to them. Do not be afraid of them. Relax and rest in a non-conceptual state. Abiding in this state, all the Buddha bodies and light rays will merge into you, and Buddhahood will then be attained. O child of Buddha nature, during the above series, the green light indicative of the pristine cognition of accomplishment will not arise. The reason for this is that the natural expressive power of pristine cognition, which is your own intrinsic awareness, is not yet perfected. O child of Buddha nature, this array of luminosities that you are now experiencing is called the vision of the 4 pristine cognitions combined. It is also known as the hollow passageway of Vajrasattva. At this time, therefore, you should recall the oral instructions, which your spiritual teacher formally introduced to you. If you successfully recall this former introduction, you will have confidence in the visions that have already arisen, and you will recognize them just as there is instant recognition at the meeting of a mother and her son, or just as one instantly recognizes an old acquaintance the moment one sees them. Cutting through any doubt, you will recognize these radiances to be natural manifestations of actual reality. Achieving confidence in this way, in the unchanging path of pure reality, and sustaining a continuous meditative stability, you will dissolve into the Buddha body of great spontaneously present awareness, and irreversibly attain Buddhahood in the Buddha body of perfect resource. O child of Buddha nature, together with the radiances of pristine cognition, the 6 dull lights indicative of the 6 classes of beings, who are obscured by impure and bewildering perception, will also arise simultaneously. That is to say, the dull white light of the gods, the dull red light of the anti-gods, the dull blue light of the humans, the dull green light of the animals, the dull yellow light of the anguished spirits, and the dull smoky light of the inhabitants of the hells will arise alongside the radiances of pure, pristine cognition. At that moment, do not seize upon or become attached to any of these lights. Relax and abide in a non-referential state, for if you are fearful of the pure radiances of pristine cognition and become attached to the impure lights of cyclic existence with its 6 classes of beings, you will assume a body amongst one of these 6 realms, and you will be debilitated. For there will be no immediate opportunity for escape from cyclic existence, this vast ocean of suffering. O child of Buddha nature, if you are one who has not been introduced to the oral instructions of a spiritual teacher, you will be frightened and overwhelmed by these Buddha bodies and the radiances of pure, pristine cognition just described, and you will feel attachment towards the dull lights of impure, cyclic existence. Do not do this. Be devoted to the bright and dazzling radiances of pure, pristine cognition. Be full of devotion and think, the light rays of pristine cognition, which are the compassion of those gone to bliss, the transcendent lords of the 5 enlightened families, have come to seize me with compassion. I take refuge in them. Do not be attached to the bewildering lights of the 6 classes of beings. Do not cling to them. Focus one-pointedly on the male and female Buddhas of the 5 enlightened families and recite the following aspirational prayer. O, as I roam in the cyclic existence driven by the 5 virulent poisons, may the transcendent conquerors, the male Buddhas of the 5 enlightened families, draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the 4 pristine cognitions combined. May the 5 supreme female Buddhas, the purity of the expanse, support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the light paths of the 6 impure classes of beings. Released from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state, may I be escorted to the 5 utterly supreme and pure Buddha fields. By making this aspirational prayer, the superior adept will recognize the radiances of pristine cognition to be natural manifestations of actual reality, and thereby, upon dissolving indivisibly with them, Buddhahood will be attained. Those of average ability will achieve recognition on the basis of fervent devotion, and thereby attain liberation, and even all those of inferior ability can, through the power of pure aspiration, close the womb entrances through which the 6 classes of beings are born. Thus, if the nature of the 4 pristine cognitions combined is realized, all of the above individuals can attain Buddhahood through the hollow passageway of Vajrasattva. As a result of being introduced in such a clear and detailed way, the majority will attain recognition, and many individuals will achieve liberation. However, those most lowly individuals in the human world, who totally lack the propensities for spiritual practice, and those who have broken their commitments and so forth, will continue to be bewildered as a result of their negative past actions. Despite being introduced, they will continue to roam downwards, failing to achieve recognition. So it is that on the 7th day the divine assembly of the awareness holders will arise from the pure realm of the skyfarers and come to escort the deceased, as will, simultaneously, the light path to the animal realm, formed of the dissonant mental state, delusion. At this time, calling the deceased by name, the introduction should be given with the following words. O child of Buddha nature, listen without distraction. On the 7th day of 5-faceted multicolored light, which is indicative of the purity of your habitual tendencies in the expanse of reality, will arise before you. Simultaneously, the divine assembly of the awareness holders, arising from the pure realm of the skyfarers, will come forward to escort you. In the center of this mandala, suffused by rainbows and light, the unsurpassed Vidyadhara, known as the awareness holder of maturation, Padma Narteshvara, will instantaneously arise, his body resplendent with the radiance of the five lights, embraced by his consort, a red Dakini, who is dancing with a blood-filled skull and a curved knife, raised in the gesture of pointing to the sky. From the east of the mandala, the Vidyadhara known as the awareness holder who abides on the levels will instantaneously arise, his body white in color, his face radiant and smiling. He is embraced by his consort, a white Dakini, who is dancing with a blood-filled skull and a curved knife, raised in the gesture of pointing to the sky. From the south of the mandala, the Vidyadhara known as the awareness holder with power over the lifespan will instantaneously arise, his body yellow in color and adorned by the exquisite 80 minor marks. He is embraced by his consort, a yellow Dakini, who is dancing with a blood-filled skull and a curved knife, raised in the gesture of pointing to the sky. From the west of the mandala, the Vidyadhara known as the awareness holder of the Great Seal will instantaneously arise, his body red in color, his face radiant and smiling. He is embraced by his consort, a red Dakini, who is dancing with a blood-filled skull and a curved knife, raised in the gesture of pointing to the sky. From the north of the mandala, the Vidyadhara known as the awareness holder of spontaneous presence will instantaneously arise, his body green in color, his face both wrathful and smiling. He is embraced by his consort, a green Dakini, who is dancing with a blood-filled skull and a curved knife, raised in the gesture of pointing to the sky. Encircling these awareness holders, there will be inestimable crowds of Dakinis, the Dakinis of the 8 charnel grounds, Dakinis of the 4 enlightened families, Dakinis of the 3 abodes, Dakinis of the 10 directions, Dakinis of the 24 power places, spiritual heroes and heroines, faithful retainers and protectors of the sacred teachings, all wearing the 6 kinds of bone ornaments, playing drums, thigh-bone trumpets, and skull drums, and waving banners made of the hide of ritually liberated beings. Canopies and streamers of human hide, the entire display pervaded by an incense cloud of burning human flesh, reverberating with the sound of countless and diverse musical instruments, the sound permeating all world systems, causing them to vibrate, tremble, and quake. The crescendo will reverberate as if to split your head. Performing their diverse dances, this array will come to escort those who have kept their commitments, and to bring to account those who have allowed their commitments to degenerate. O child of Buddha nature, a 5-colored light which is indicative of the purity of your habitual tendencies in the expanse of reality and of co-emergent pristine cognition, composed of colored threads of light twisted together, pulsing, shimmering, translucent, radiant, clear, bright, and awesome, will emanate from the hearts of the 5 principal awareness holders and will shine piercingly before you, at the level of your heart, with such brilliance that your eyes cannot bear it. At that moment, a dull green light, indicative of the realms of the animals, will arise simultaneously with the light of pristine cognition and touch your heart. At this time, bewildered and confused by your past habitual tendencies, you will be frightened by the 5-colored light and wish to turn away. Instantly you will be attracted to the dull light of the animal realms, so therefore do not be frightened now by the bright and flashing five-colored light. Do not be terrified. Recognize this radiance to be pristine cognition. Within the five-colored light, all the natural sounds of the sacred teachings will resound like 1,000 simultaneous peals of thunder. They will resound like a violent echo, an overwhelming reverberation, a tumultuous crescendo, a cacophony of war cries, and pound with the roar of wrathful mantras of terrifying ferocity. Do not be afraid. Do not turn away. Recognize these sounds and luminosities to be the naturally expressive power of your own awareness, manifesting naturally. Do not be attracted to the dull green light of the animals. Do not cling to it. If you become attached to it, you will fall into the obscured realms of the animals and be enveloped by the limitless sufferings of obfuscation, dumbness, and servility, from which there will be no immediate opportunity for release. So do not be attached to that dull green light. Be devoted to the five-colored light that is radiant and dazzling. Focus intently and one-pointedly on the divine assembly of the awareness holders, the transcendent lords and spiritual teachers, thinking, as you, the awareness holders, together with your attending heroes and dakinis, have come forward to escort me to the pure realm of the skyfarers, I implore you, pity sentient beings such as myself, who have failed to amass the accumulations of merit and pristine cognition, and pity those such as I, who have not been rescued until now, even though we have been embraced by the compassion of all the assembled deities of the 5 enlightened families, those gone to bliss throughout the 3 times. Today may you, the divine assembly of awareness holders, not allow me to descend any further than this. Grasp me with the hook of your compassion, and lead me immediately to the pure realm of the skyfarers. Focusing intently and one-pointedly on the divine mandala of awareness holders, recite the following aspirational prayer. Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated habitual tendencies, may the divine assembly of awareness holders attend to me and lead me on the path with great love. May the assembly of spiritual heroes and awareness holders draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the luminance of co-emergent, pristine cognition. May the supreme consorts, the hosts of dakinis, support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state, and be escorted to the sacred, pure realm of the skyfarers. By making this aspirational prayer with fervent devotion, you will dissolve into rainbow light in the heart of the divine assembly of the awareness holders, and thereafter, undoubtedly, be born into the pure realm of the skyfarers. All types of spiritual friend can attain recognition at this stage, and thus they will attain liberation. There is no doubt that even those with negative propensities can attain liberation at this point. This concludes the first part of the Great Liberation by Hearing, the introduction to inner radiance in the intermediate state of the time of death, and the introduction to the peaceful deities of the intermediate state of reality. Iti samaya ja ja ja.